my stepson Kevin, whom I began living with after remarrying. Kevin had never accepted me as his mother from the beginning, causing me years of hardship.
Divorce Dad and get out of this house.
Kevin hurled these words at me mockingly as I stood there silently. When I heard Kevin's words, what I felt was not anger, but pity. He had finally crossed a line that should never be crossed. After all the hard work I went through, he managed to get a recommendation to a prestigious university. With his careless words, my husband's conniving son was going to lose everything.
All right,
I responded quietly, and my husband David, who had been watching from the background, pushed a piece of paper into my hand with a gleeful smile.
This will make a great gift for Kevin's acceptance. Fill this out and submit it today.
it was a divorce paper.
I could feel my body trembling at David's words. As I looked down, shaking, David coldly told me to leave. And with that, the door was mercilessly closed in my face. The words, "You reap what you sow," crossed my mind. Now, I had no reason to show them any leniency. Shaking with anger, I contacted someone to set my long-prepared plan into motion. Soon, David and Kevin would plunge headlong into the abyss. My name is Emily, a 47-year-old part-time housewife. Currently, I live with my husband, David, and my son, Kevin. I have been troubled by David's and Kevin's attitudes for years. However, David and I are both remarried, and Kevin is not my biological child. Therefore, David and I have been living together for about 10 years. When I was 32, I lost my first husband in an accident. I had no children with my first husband, so I thought I would have to live the rest of my life alone, and I was overwhelmed by its length. 5 years later, when I was 37, my boss, who had been taking care of me, suggested a matchmaking meeting with my current husband, David. At that time, I was throwing myself into work to overcome the grief of losing my first husband. To my boss, I must have seemed quite pitiful.
Just meet with him once. It's not a bad match for you.
With that, my boss quickly set a date for the matchmaking meeting. I reluctantly agreed to my boss's somewhat forceful suggestion. I did so because my boss had been very helpful to me and my late husband, and we were close as a family. Even after my husband passed away, my boss was always there for me. Having lost my parents early and having no other relatives, my boss was like a father to me. Wanting to honor my boss, I decided to meet the man just once. On the day of the meeting, I went with my boss to the restaurant set up for the occasion. There, waiting for us, were David, his father Tom, and David's son Kevin. My boss and Tom introduced us to each other, and we began our meal in a friendly atmosphere. Since my boss and Tom were friends, they were chatting happily.
"Yes, just as I heard, she is a wonderful woman,"
Tom said, nodding gently while looking at me. My boss chimed in enthusiastically.
Yeah, Emily is really diligent and trustworthy. She's a remarkable person who'd make anyone proud.
As the two of them chatted animatedly, David, Kevin, and I quietly picked at our food. I glanced at David and Kevin and noticed they both looked a bit displeased. At that time, David had just gotten divorced, and his son Kevin was only 8. I assumed they were just nervous. Noticing my concern for David and Kevin, Tom spoke to me.
Kevin still needs a mother at his age. If you are willing, would you consider marrying David?
Tom's pained request weighed heavily on my mind. However, having no experience raising children, I was unsure if I could raise an 8-year-old. However, my boss reassured me, saying, "Your kindness will be enough." Before I knew it, David proposed to me. I thought it was a bit soon and consulted my boss, who was thrilled. Furthermore, with Tom being very enthusiastic about the match, it became hard for me to refuse. In the end, I reluctantly accepted David's proposal, and we got married. Thus, I found myself marrying David and starting a life with Kevin and Tom. However, married life turned out to be very different from what I had imagined. At the beginning of our marriage, I tried to be close to David and Kevin. I asked about their favorite foods, and no matter how busy I was, I always prepared homemade meals for them after work. But the only one who appreciated my efforts was Tom. David and Kevin remained distant, offering no comments about the meals I made. Moreover, neither David nor Kevin talked to me, and I was bewildered by the lack of conversation in our home. To make matters worse, when they saw my belongings being moved in, they complained.
"I don't want you to bring in any more stuff. You're making the place feel cramped."
If you bring in more things, there won't be room for Mom's stuff.
In contrast to David's calm words, Kevin would hurl insults at me in a fit of rage. I didn't know how to handle Kevin, so I ended up staying silent. Seeing that I didn't argue back, Kevin started making more and more demands. David never reprimanded Kevin for his increasingly rude comments. Instead, David teamed up with Kevin and made accusatory comments towards me.
"That's right. You have too many unnecessary things, especially this watch. Why do you even have a man's watch? Are you cheating or something?"
David said as he tried to take one of the few pieces of jewelry I owned.
I couldn't help but scream.
Please stop. Don't say such awful things. That watch is my father's only keepsake.
With tears in my eyes, I pleaded weakly, and David clicked his tongue while Kevin stuck his tongue out at me.
Hey, Dad, I know something. Those kinds of watches can sell for a good price online. I saw it in a video yesterday.
David smirked unpleasantly at Kevin's words and began laughing loudly.
"Oh yeah, maybe I should sell it for some extra cash,"
David said with a vile grin, and he tried to take the watch from my hand.
Stop it.
What do you think you're doing?
Just as David was about to snatch the watch, Tom returned from being out and saw what was happening. He shouted at David and Kevin. David and Kevin shrank back and started mumbling excuses.
"It's nothing. We were just teasing her a bit, trying to bond."
Yeah, this old lady cries too easily.
Kevin said cheekily, but Tom reprimanded him harshly.
She's not old lady. Emily has become your mother.
Tom firmly placed his hands on Kevin's shoulders, looked him in the eye, and spoke in a strong tone.
Listen, Kevin, from now on, you will call Emily Mom.
The stern words from his usually gentle grandfather must have really affected Kevin. After that, Kevin began calling me Mom. However, David and Kevin became even more distant and cold towards me. Thankfully, Tom kept a close watch, preventing them from making any more hurtful comments. On the surface, we appeared to be a family. But if you asked if there was love, that might have been difficult to say. David and Kevin were always cold towards me. But Tom was different. Tom did his best to mediate between David and me, trying to bridge the gap. And whenever the situation called for it, he would stand up for me.
Emily, I'm sorry for always leaving the housework to you and for taking care of Kevin.
No, it's all right. We are family after all.
I would smile and answer gently to Tom's kind words. To be honest, my current life was full of hardships. But there was a reason I couldn't change the situation. In truth, Tom had a chronic illness, and it seemed to have worsened since we first met. Tom started missing work more often, and I took care of him during breaks from my job. David showed little interest in his ailing father, leaving most of the caregiving to me.
If I were to leave, who would take care of Tom?
Thinking this, I couldn't bring myself to abandon Tom and divorce David. Sure, one might think I shouldn't care about Tom since he isn't my blood relative.
But I just couldn't think that way.
In fact, I lost my father when I was a senior in high school. My mother had always been frail, and my father took care of her while working and raising me. When I was in high school, my mother, who had been bedridden, caught a cold and passed away. For the next 3 years until his death, my father worked tirelessly. In Tom, I saw a reflection of my father from those days. Back then, I was just a kid and couldn't do anything to help my father.
I've lived with that regret ever since.
So now, abandoning Tom was something I simply couldn't do. Perhaps Tom understood my feelings without me having to say anything. He treated me, who was devotedly caring for him, like his own daughter.
I'm really glad Emily married David. David is a hopeless son, but please continue to stay by his side and support him.
That became Tom's constant refrain. I always listened with mixed emotions. Even after nearly 6 years of marriage, David and Kevin's attitudes remained cold. The rift between us would likely never be bridged. But for Tom's sake, I turned a blind eye to many things and continued my current life. As long as Tom was there, I could manage to keep going. That's what I thought, until it happened. 7 years into our marriage. It was spring, just as Kevin was entering high school. Tom's chronic illness rapidly worsened, and he passed away. I felt as if I had lost a father for the second time and was consumed with grief every day. As I tearfully mourned Tom, David and Kevin spoke to me coldly.
You're not even related by blood, so stop crying so dramatically. Are you after his inheritance?
You're so annoying. That's exactly the kind of thing a pathetic old lady like you would think.
Their words were so cruel that I couldn't help but argue back. What? We've lived together as a family all this time. Tom treated me like his own daughter. To me, Tom was real family. David turned a cold gaze towards me.
Real family?
No way.
Kevin laughed loudly. After laughing, Kevin sneered.
I've never thought of you as my mother, not even once.
You're mistaken. I only married you because my dad told me to.
David coldly added that I had always been a burden to him. I had suspected their true feelings for a while, but hearing it directly from them tore my heart to pieces. With Tom gone, David and Kevin revealed their true selves and started treating me like a housekeeper. Despite both of us working, David stopped contributing financially and left all the housework to me. As a result, I had to manage the living expenses with my own earnings alone.
Things got even worse.
Kevin started criticizing my housekeeping and became physically violent. Kevin would throw things at me and hurl insults, saying things like, "The food is terrible," and "I don't like the way you fold the laundry." Their treatment of me worsened with each passing day. As their behavior escalated, I began to fear for my safety.
Of course, I had thought about divorce.
I consulted with trusted people many times and questioned myself repeatedly. With Tom gone, there was no need for me to be tied to this house any longer.
But I had made a promise to Tom.
His constant refrain, "Please take care of David," bound me. I decided to endure a little longer to honor Tom's last wish. At least until Kevin graduated from high school, I wanted to fulfill my role as a mother.
However, the broken relationships never mended.
David eventually stopped coming home often, and when he did, he found reasons to be violent towards me. Kevin, influenced by David, started bringing bad friends home and causing trouble. While he was well behaved at school and in the neighborhood, at home he was verbally abusive and sometimes physically violent towards me. He gathered bad friends from who knows where and openly drank and smoked in front of me. I thought his behavior was too out of control and repeatedly tried to reprimand and advise him. "Please, don't do that. I'm saying this for your own good."
Shut up. I told you not to act like my mother.
With that, Kevin threw a half-empty can and a lit cigarette at me. His friends laughed loudly at the scene. Kevin glared at me and shouted, "Get out of here."
And that wasn't all.
Not only did Kevin ignore my words, but he also started stealing money from the house out of my purse. I was at my wits' end with Kevin's misdeeds. At this rate, Kevin's future would be truly disastrous. I secretly started making various preparations and subtly consulted an expert about Kevin and David.
However, no solution was found.
As time passed, Kevin became a senior in high school. Despite my repeated warnings, Kevin continued to hang out with bad friends. Between his study sessions for college entrance exams, Kevin would repeatedly cause trouble under the pretext of taking a break, and I began to feel increasingly hopeless. Despite everything, Kevin was naturally intelligent and a good student, maintaining his reputation as an excellent student at school. With his charm, Kevin easily passed the school's internal selection process and was accepted into a prestigious university through a designated school recommendation. David was overjoyed and came home early to celebrate Kevin's acceptance, even though it was still daytime. That day, I took the day off work and prepared a celebratory meal from the morning, pouring my heart into it. I desperately wanted Kevin to eat my homemade food just this once. However, Kevin completely disregarded my feelings. When he saw my homemade meal, Kevin dismissively said to me,
I've always wondered, do you really think we would be happy with your homemade food?
Kevin said, and then he started taking each of my dishes from the dining table and slowly throwing them into the sink. David watched the scene with amusement, saying nothing. I stood there, frozen and unable to move. Kevin hurled these words at me mockingly as I stood there silently.
We don't need a fake mother. Divorce Dad and get out of this house.
When I heard Kevin's words, what I felt was not anger, but pity. Kevin, unaware that I had been avoiding trouble and shielding him, had finally crossed a line that should never have been crossed. Despite having just been accepted into a prestigious university, with his careless words, David's conniving son was going to lose everything.
All right, I understand.
I responded quietly, and David, with a pleased expression, handed me a piece of paper.
This will make a great gift for Kevin's acceptance. Fill this out and submit it today.
David handed me a completed divorce paper. I could feel my body trembling. As I looked down, shaking, David spoke to me in a cold voice.
Finally, I can get rid of you. Now I can remarry Julie, who my dad forced me to divorce.
Julie was David's ex-wife, Kevin's real mother. David had been secretly seeing Julie the whole time we were married. Tom never got along with Julie and always said she couldn't be trusted. Apparently, she had caused a lot of trouble for David's late mother as well.
Yes. Finally, we'll be free from this dreary old lady, Dad.
Yeah, unlike that housekeeper, Julie is beautiful and young.
David and Kevin laughed loudly. After their laughter, they grinned and pushed me out of the house.
We'll throw your stuff outside later. Take it and go.
The door was slammed shut in front of me without mercy. Now, I had no reason to show them any leniency. Shaking with anger, I contacted a person to set my long-prepared plan into motion. The person on the other end of the line was surprised to hear from me, but quickly took action. They adjusted their schedule and arranged to meet me in person the next day.
And the next day.
Due to the discovery of inappropriate behavior, your acceptance has been revoked.
The person said this over the phone in front of me.
What?
I could hear Kevin's bewildered voice from the other end of the line.
A few hours later,
David and Kevin barged into the university president's office, where I was, ignoring the security guards. David, furious, tried to grab me as soon as he saw me. I instinctively stepped back, but David, in a fit of rage, yelled and closed in on me.
Hey, you! What are you doing here? Did you do this? Explain yourself.
In fact, Kevin's acceptance was revoked due to his inappropriate behavior at home and elsewhere. It wasn't because I reported him, but rather due to videos posted on social media that had raised concerns. I don't use social media, so I didn't know the details, but apparently an anonymous tip had been sent to the university president with the video. The video was blurred, making it hard to identify faces, but the president recognized the room in the video, which led to identifying Kevin. The president was very surprised by this coincidence. I was also very surprised when I heard about it. This seems like a perfect example of what goes around comes around. Anyway, the president immediately decided to revoke Kevin's acceptance. David and Kevin, unable to accept this, barged in to confront him directly. They believed that I had ratted them out to the president.
This woman is a compulsive liar. You have no idea how much I've suffered because of her.
Shouting, David began to tell the president how wonderful Kevin was. And then he started to hurl insults at me. The president's temple twitched as he listened.
Stop spouting nonsense.
Finally, the president's patience snapped, and he reprimanded David. The president, Mark, was actually my late husband's brother. I had been secretly consulting Mark about Kevin all along. Mark had always treated me like a real sister, and after his brother, my first husband, passed away, he continued to care about me. I also trusted Mark and consulted him whenever I needed advice. Of course, I had told him everything about my remarriage to David and about Kevin. That's why Mark knew all about David and Kevin, as well as the layout and interior of the house we lived in. Mark was genuinely shocked when he saw the video of the accusation and recognized the house he knew. And at that moment, I had contacted him, so he made time to meet with me.
I also reviewed the photos Emily took of Kevin's problematic behavior. It's clear who's lying.
Saying this, Mark glared sharply at David and Kevin. Intimidated by Mark's authoritative presence and piercing gaze, David was left speechless. I added to the pressure by presenting a business card. Furthermore, I am demanding alimony and property division from you, David. From now on, all communications with me should go through this lawyer. My firm tone made the two fall silent. After glaring at me for a while, David suddenly made a bitter remark.
Well, Kevin got into a prestigious university. He can get into another one even now.
Kevin chimed in, echoing his father's sentiments.
That's right. I wouldn't attend this university even if they begged me.
With that, the two stormed out of the president's office. I let out a long breath I had been holding. Mark also exhaled deeply. As March came to an end, I received a call from Kevin. In fact, after that, Kevin was unable to get into the prestigious university he had hoped for. Because he thought he was guaranteed admission through the recommendation, he barely studied in the second half of his senior year. Naturally, his academic performance declined. Kevin, with his high pride, refused to attend any university that wasn't prestigious and decided to take a gap year. Furthermore, Julie, the woman David remarried, was beautiful, but also a spendthrift, an alcoholic, and in debt. Tom had forced David and Julie to divorce because of her debt and alcoholism. It seems David didn't know this, but Tom had told Julie to divorce in exchange for paying off her debts and giving her a settlement. After the divorce, Julie continued her spending habits, racking up more debt she couldn't repay. So she approached David and Kevin to remarry, seeing them as her financial saviors. Kevin tearfully complained to me about it.
Mom yells at me, calling me a disappointment because I couldn't get into college.
Sniffling, Kevin continued in a pleading voice.
You're my real mom. Please help me and Dad. We've reached our limit. We're family, right?
His sickeningly sweet voice sent shivers down my spine. What was he saying now? The nerve. Julie probably banked on Kevin's income after he graduated from a prestigious university. Kevin cried, saying that David had taken on a prohibited side job to pay off Julie's debts and had been fired from his major corporation. I'm sorry, but we're not family anymore. You were the ones who wanted it that way. Don't ever call me again. I rejected Kevin and coldly hung up the phone. 5 years passed. I had thrown myself into my work, climbing the career ladder and achieving significant success. One day, I was shocked to hear news of a bomb threat against Mark's University. The perpetrator was Kevin, whose life had allegedly spiraled out of control because he couldn't get into college. I learned this from Mark later.
What a terrible grudge.
Mark sighed wearily.
I couldn't find any words to respond. Later, I heard from my lawyer that Kevin had been arrested by the police and that David and Julie had disappeared, leaving behind their deaths. Tom, in the end, I couldn't keep my promise to you. On a bright and sunny day, I visited Tom's grave. While offering a prayer at his grave, I apologized. Tom was a kind person. Surely he would forgive me. I believed that and silently gazed at the clear sky.
The old man used to complain every day, so it was amazing when he finally kicked the bucket, right? The old lady is so stubborn.
I gasped as I overheard Sarah's loud conversation on the phone. She was such a good girl when she was little. What happened?
Oh, old man, I was just saying stuff like hurry up and disappear or you're still alive. He was just in the way.
Imagining the pain my husband Mike went through, I could hardly breathe. Something inside me was vanishing completely.
Oh no, this is.
Sarah's smile froze when she saw Emily and me. She stammered, trying to make an excuse, but I cut her off. Could you not speak? If you're planning on talking to me out of some sense of duty, you can stop. I have no desire to talk to you. The person in front of me was no longer my daughter. My love had faded, leaving only guilt for having raised such a person. I made a firm decision and took a new step forward. My name is Viola Howard. I'm a 54-year-old housewife. Until recently, I lived happily with my husband, Mike, who is 2 years older than me. Mike, honey, rest in peace. You're not in pain anymore. It's sad, but goodbye. On the day my beloved Mike passed away, I was too stunned to cry. Instead, I cried my heart out until no tears were left during the funeral. Relatives, friends, and various people took turns comforting me. Of course, my family quietly supported me. The family I had left consisted of my only daughter, Sarah, and her husband, Tyler. Sarah is now 29. Though there were many challenges during her teenage years, I believe she has completely settled down now. She has grown into a bright, lively, and dependable woman. She no longer lives with us. Instead, she married a man named Tyler and lives in a suburban apartment. This Tyler, though younger than Sarah, is a responsible and very kind person. He helped with the funeral arrangements, which was a great relief. A kind husband, a cheerful daughter, and a helpful son-in-law. I never imagined my family would fall apart like this. Or maybe I just hadn't noticed that it had already been broken for a long time. As I recall the first signs, it feels like they date back 15 years. At the time, Sarah was in middle school. She was right in the throes of adolescence.
She's been going out a lot lately.
Mike remarked, leaning forward. I felt the same, so I saw it as a perfect chance to discuss it with him. Sarah was late again today. It had become a routine for her to come home late, well past dark. Yes, she seems influenced by an upperclassman from her club. She even dyed her hair without permission. I don't know what to do anymore. Sarah was such a good, bright, and cute girl when she was little. She had a bit of a cheeky side, but I raised her with love. Up until elementary school, she was really just an ordinary child. However, things changed when she entered middle school. Then things changed. Her friends became those who wore their uniforms sloppily, and she started to behave badly. Just the other day, I noticed she had a lot of piercings. You're not hanging out with strange people, are you? It's dangerous, you know, if something happens.
Shut up, old lady.
Such conversations became frequent. Mike was also very worried when he heard me. As more time passed, Sarah started staying out overnight without permission when she was in high school. Where have you been? I was so worried. At least call me. I couldn't help but raise my voice. It wasn't anger, but anxiety that made me unable to stay silent. However, Sarah didn't seem to care at all.
Huh? You're so annoying.
With that, she disappeared into her room. I gradually began to wear out from the stress. Mike also tried to talk to Sarah, but she just wouldn't listen. Instead, she stayed out even more to spite us for being persistent. My best friend of 20 years, Emily, invited me for tea, sensing my distress. Spending time with her was a huge relief. Maybe it's my fault for how I raised her, I muttered. Emily sighed softly. She has 2 sons, so she couldn't fully grasp the challenges of raising a daughter. But as someone who had children earlier than I did, she listened to me with understanding.
Sarah isn't a little girl anymore. It's not just about how you and Mike raised her. Remember how we were in high school? Our friends and TV had a bigger influence on us than our parents did.
Her words lightened my heart a bit. Emily was right. I never became a delinquent, but during my high school years, conversations with friends were more important than listening to my parents. Thinking about it that way, I could understand why Sarah found our worries annoying. When I got home, Mike encouraged me too.
Let's keep loving her, together. She'll understand when she grows up.
Buoyed by Emily and Mike's words, I resolved to keep believing in Sarah and continue our daily life. Sarah still remained distant and stayed out overnight. Her makeup became more flamboyant, and her nails were always glittery. She seemed to have a boyfriend, but she never introduced him to us. He probably wasn't a decent person. At the beginning of May, Sarah came home unusually early while it was still light out. By then, I had gotten used to her late returns, so her early arrival was a surprise. "Oh, you're home early. Are you having dinner here tonight?" I asked. Sarah didn't retreat to her room as usual, but seemed a bit fidgety. I wondered what was going on when she handed me something she had been hiding behind her back.
Here for Mother's Day.
I couldn't believe my eyes. She handed me a single red carnation. I never expected to get a Mother's Day gift from her. I was so overjoyed that I teared up. "Oh, thank you." Sarah giggled and then disappeared into her room. I excitedly put the flower in a vase and proudly showed it to Mike when he got home. "Look, Sarah gave me this." Mike's eyes softened as he looked at the bright red flower. I couldn't help but hope that our relationship with her would gradually improve. But that night, when I woke up in the middle of the night to use the bathroom, I noticed the light was on in Sarah's room. It was already 2 a.m. Wishing she would go to bed soon, I listened to the sounds around me and heard cheerful conversations. She seemed to be on the phone with a friend. I couldn't help but eavesdrop.
You should just work your parents to the bone until they drop. Yeah, just talking to them is a volunteer job.
I was shocked by the outrageous things I heard. Unaware that I was eavesdropping, Sarah continued boastfully.
Just a little sweet talk and you can fool them easily. I gave my mom an 88-cent flower for Mother's Day and she cried. That was funny.
The red carnation I received earlier flashed in my mind. I bit my lip and quietly walked away. The next morning, I woke up slightly earlier than usual and immediately woke up Mike. I needed to talk about Sarah's phone call from the previous night. Mike was stunned by what I told him, scratching his head and frowning.
Is she serious, or is she just trying to act tough for her friends?
His words reminded me of Sarah's shy smile when she handed me the carnation. Deep down, I wanted to believe that was her true self. Soon, Sarah came down, looking sleepy. Seeing both Mike and me staring at her, she tilted her head in confusion.
What's up? Good morning.
Seeing her like that, Mike and I couldn't help but smile and relax. We decided to believe in Sarah's sincerity. 10 years later, in his mid-50s, my beloved Mike fell ill. Despite being newly married, Sarah actively helped with his care. It made me happy, thinking Mike was right about her understanding as she grew older. However, Mike didn't seem pleased with Sarah's visits. Curious, I asked Sarah about it.
Dad seems to think he's being a burden to me.
I see, I thought. Taking Sarah's words at face value, I ended up scolding Mike. It's okay to rely on Sarah. Let her be filial after all the struggles we've had. When I smiled, Mike looked sad and unconvinced. After about a year of battling illness, my beloved Mike passed away. He was only 56 years old. I was heartbroken. After the funeral, Sarah held my hand.
Why don't you live with us? You must be lonely alone. We're family. We should support each other.
I gladly accepted the offer. Since Sarah and Tyler's apartment was small, we decided they would move into the house Mike and I shared. We started by clearing out the house. Every item was filled with memories, making it hard to part with things. Sarah and Tyler often helped.
This is nostalgic.
This is nice. We can use it.
Watching the young couple talk about the items was endearing. I felt a strong sense of family. As life slowly returned to normal, I went to my part-time job. Sarah came over that morning, so I left her to look after the house. After work, I stepped outside to find it pouring rain. According to a colleague checking the weather app, it was a sudden shower. Without an umbrella and having to walk to the station, I decided to wait out the rain. Sorry, I'll be late because I'm waiting for the rain to stop. I called Sarah, who should have been waiting at home. Then Sarah replied cheerfully,
Sure, I'll cook dinner while I wait. Tyler's coming over tonight, so how about we have a family barbecue at home?
I was grateful she was even taking care of the household chores. Even though Mike had passed away, I felt fortunate to have been blessed with a new family in Sarah and her husband. As I waited for the rain to stop at the entrance of my workplace, a familiar car pulled up.
Viola, I was just on my way to your house. Perfect timing. Hop in.
It was Emily in the driver's seat. She happened to be passing by and offered me a ride. I'll get home much earlier than planned. Thank you, Emily. We talked about our lives as we drove. When I told her about living with my daughter and her husband and our plans to move in together permanently, Emily was genuinely happy for me. Returning home with Emily was wonderful until it was summer, and the windows were open with only screens. As we got out of the car, Sarah's loud phone conversation hit our ears.
Old man used to complain every day, so it was amazing when he finally kicked the bucket. Old lady is so stubborn.
I gasped. I stopped in my tracks and grabbed Emily's arm. Emily, also tense, held her breath. We slowly approached the window.
Oh, old man, I was just like, hurry up and die already. Or, are you still alive? He was just in the way.
I was horrified. I realized those cruel words were directed at Mike. So that's why he didn't want Sarah to care for him. I hated myself for not noticing sooner.
Yeah, my mom's family is super rich even though they live in the middle of nowhere. Totally want it, right? So just put up with her for a while. Once we get that inheritance, we'll make her disappear. How do we get her to give us an advance on the inheritance, Tyler?
I felt the blood drain from my face. Sarah and Tyler. They weren't a beloved family. In that moment, I decided to sever all ties with them. The love I felt just minutes ago seemed like a lie. I didn't know love could vanish so completely. So that's what you really think. The phrase, shaking with anger, doesn't seem to be an exaggeration. I slowly opened the screen door from the outside. Sarah's smile froze when she saw Emily and me.
Oh no, this is...
Sarah started making excuses, almost dropping her phone. I watched her coldly. I had thought of her as a kind and caring daughter. I believed she had outgrown her rebellious phase, but it was all a delusion. I couldn't forgive myself for not seeing through her. If I had noticed sooner, Mike wouldn't have suffered. I was overwhelmed with sadness and anger. I cut off Sarah's excuses. Could you not speak? If you're planning on talking to me out of some sense of duty, you can stop. I have no desire to talk to you. Using formal language showed the distance in my heart. I signaled Emily, and we marched into the house together. Inside, I saw Sarah's bag and Tyler's tools, items they had brought in. I grabbed them and threw them out the window one by one.
Hey, what the hell are you doing?
She protests, grabbing at me, but I resist with all my might. While Emily, who's bigger than me, tries to push Sarah out the front door, I finish throwing everything out the window. Sarah, still hurling insults, continues to struggle with Emily. Our eyes meet as Sarah glares at me, and I can't help but voice my resentment. Even when you turned delinquent, even when you talked back, even when you yelled over the phone to your friends that parents were a nuisance. Despite all that, I tried to believe in the child I gave birth to, but it was truly in vain. If I had cut ties sooner, I wouldn't have caused grief for my beloved Mike. I feel my cheeks burning, and as I casually wipe them, I notice my hand is wet. Apparently, I had been crying.
It was just a joke, geez.
I felt a tremendous dislike for her half-smile and twitching face. She broke free from Emily, and with all my strength, I shook off her hand that tried to touch my shoulder. "Don't touch me," I shouted loudly. In the commotion, Sarah dropped her phone. The call is still connected, and the name Tyler is displayed on the screen. I picked up the phone and, with all my strength, threw it. With what I considered a perfect pitch, the phone flew out the window and landed on the road in front of the house.
No, my phone.
Sarah screamed and ran to retrieve it. In the meantime, I closed all the windows, locked them, and secured the front door with the chain.
Hey, doesn't Sarah have a spare key? Won't she bring that rough-looking husband of hers?
Emily's words made me freeze. Tyler is obviously a former delinquent, and the two of us, women in our 50s, wouldn't stand a chance against him physically. Following Emily's suggestion, I sought help from those around us. Neighbors and Emily's sons came rushing over, and we decided to stay together. Naturally, I also decided to stop living with Sarah and her husband. But that's not all. I've resolved to leave this house and move far away. I want to go somewhere they can't reach. I never want to see them again. I want to move to a place where we won't run into each other by chance. So, I first call a buying service, not a moving company, with the help of my friends. The buyers couldn't come immediately, so I first asked my nearby friends and relatives for help. As a parting gift, please take anything you like, whether it's dishes, appliances, anything but my husband's ashes and memorial tablet. Few people could come that day, but once I mentioned that items would be given on a first-come, first-served basis, some rushed over. I also called out to the neighbors who were present. Feel free to take anything you like, even the TV or refrigerator. I'm starting fresh with all new things. I pack valuables that I don't want to be taken into a travel bag. The neighbors happily take away items like bookshelves and a relatively new vacuum cleaner. As night falls, relatives and friends arrive in droves. They eagerly choose nicer pots and Mike's golf equipment, asking, "Are you sure?" with delighted expressions. I'm glad to see them happy, much better than letting the heartless Sarah and her husband take them. As people are busy packing the mementos, a loud car pulls up outside. As expected, Sarah has returned with Tyler. They probably came to beg for forgiveness. Through the window, I see Sarah holding what looks like a cake box as a peace offering. Thinking that cake could make up for everything is beyond ridiculous. The two seem bewildered by the number of cars parked around our house and the many people coming and going. I stand up and head to the front door to chase them away.
What the hell is this? No way, that bag is the one I wanted.
Sarah turns pale at the sight of the appliances and my branded bags being taken out. Tyler stands stunned in the doorway.
Thief! Thief!
Sarah tried to grab the couple carrying the TV, but everyone stopped her. Everyone here had heard about Sarah and Tyler's misdeeds from me and Emily. No one was going to listen to them now. Sarah was still screaming, "Thief! Thief!" But to me, she and Tyler were the real thieves, stealing my time and love. Get out! Don't touch anything in this house. Everything here belongs to me and Mike's loved ones. There's nothing here for heartless people like you. I shouted with all my might. But Sarah and Tyler didn't leave. In fact, they tried to come inside, so I decided to take the final step. I called for the people waiting in the other room with Emily, John, Mary. Seeing the people who came out, Sarah's face twisted in fear. Tyler's eyes widened. and his mouth dropped open. It was because the people standing there were Tyler's parents. Since they were from her husband's family, Sarah knew them, of course. I found their contact through a Christmas card and explained the situation over the phone, and they rushed over. I felt the need to apologize for raising such a daughter. But Tyler's parents were sympathetic. Apparently, they had also shed many tears over Tyler's behavior. Tyler's father, who had come to the front door, approached him silently with a fierce expression. He grabbed Tyler's arm firmly.
Ouch. Let go.
Tyler was dragged out by his father. His father worked in construction and was very strong, leaving Tyler unable to resist. Tyler's screams were met with silent determination as his father marched him out. Sarah was also forced out by several people. My relatives and Mike's relatives took the lead and were able to drive her away with words. "Leave now. There's nothing here for you. You already took the cash from Mike's inheritance as severance. Don't come back. Even if you do, you won't be let in. You're nothing to us now. Got it?" I slammed the door and collapsed to the floor. No matter how much I hated her, she was still my daughter. Regret over raising such a child brought tears to my eyes. Emily, who had come closer, gently patted my back. After that, Sarah and Tyler never came to the house again. Tyler's parents kept a close watch on them. They even monitored Sarah as their daughter-in-law, filling me with guilt. I sold the remaining belongings to a buying service and entrusted the sale of the house to a real estate agent. Aside from Mike's memorial tablet, all my belongings fit into 2 travel bags. How light it felt. The empty house, once familiar, now looked strange. I felt oddly refreshed. I decided to stay temporarily at my parents' house and look for a new place. On the way to my parents' house, my phone rang. It was Sarah. I didn't feel like talking, but I answered the call for a moment. Instead of words, I heard sobbing. No more guilt trips. I ended the call with just that. Instead of feeling pain at my child's crying, I felt only disgust. I never imagined that the day would come when I'd feel this way about the child I gave birth to. When I arrived at my parents' house, they greeted me with somber expressions. I would now live in the room where I had spent my childhood. I cried alone, quietly. I cried all night and watched the sunrise without having slept at all. The brightening sky outside the window was so beautiful, reminding me of the sunrise I saw on the mountaintop the day Mike proposed to me. Mike and I used to love hiking when we were young. The sunrise that day felt like Mike was pushing me forward. I decided to move far away, without telling Sarah my new address so that she can't visit me. My parents are now my only family. Sarah, Tyler, and any future grandchildren are strangers to me. Although I had made up my mind, Sarah wasn't solely dependent on me. She still had both sets of grandparents, my parents and Mike's parents. After I left, Sarah, now free to move around, first sought help from Mike's parents, who I considered my in-laws. However, having heard everything from me, Mike's parents were furious and drove her away. Even though she was their precious granddaughter, they couldn't forgive her for the cruel words she had said to their ailing son. It was understandable that they didn't want to help her after learning the truth. Hearing this from Mike's parents, my parents and I prepared ourselves. We figured Sarah's next move would be to come here. Worried about my fiery temper, Emily rushed over to support me. It was 2 days after receiving the call from Mike's parents. While discussing future plans, we heard the familiar roar of Tyler's car engine. There's no doubt about it, that's the sound of Tyler's car. I didn't expect them to arrive so soon, but it saved us the trouble of waiting for days. We didn't open the door, and instead had my mother handle them via the intercom. Sarah, looking a bit gaunt, spoke through the intercom.
Grandma, it's Sarah. Mom misunderstood and we had a terrible fight. Please help me make up with her.
Hearing her say, "I misunderstood," nearly made me explode with anger. My sadness was swept away by the intense rage. Emily tried to calm me down as my face turned red with anger.
Viola, calm down. Let's go.
I stood in the entryway, breathing heavily, waiting for them. Sarah, unaware that I was inside, probably waited for the door to unlock. On my signal, Emily swiftly opened the door.
Grandma, Mom.
Sarah, smiling as she tried to enter, froze when she saw me. It was my parents' house, so she should have expected me to be there. Get out. As I shouted, Emily slammed the door shut and locked it. Sarah and Tyler panicked on the other side, but I didn't care. I yelled loudly enough for them to hear clearly through the door. I no longer have a daughter. Anyone who tells her sick father to disappear is not the precious, beloved daughter I once loved. You are strangers to me now. Get out. There was one thing I didn't say, but kept to myself. That sentence was, "I wish I had never given birth to you." No matter how much I felt it, I knew as a parent that it was the one thing I could never say. How much time passed. After a while, the sound of the engine started again, and the two of them left. I instinctively knew that I would never see them again. I've lost everything. Mike and Sarah. I wonder how Sarah will feel about today when she becomes a mother, when her child hits the rebellious phase, and when she grows old. Emily hugged me as I collapsed and cried. My parents, also tearful, comforted me. Even though I had to cut ties with Sarah and Tyler, I was relieved to know I still had people who cared about me.
Hello? Oh, it's awful. Sarah and Tyler got divorced. They seemed so in love, but I guess it was all so shallow.
Later, I received this news from Emily. She seemed surprised, but I wasn't at all. There was no way a relationship between two self-centered liars could last. Sarah had been shunned by relatives and was now completely alone. She had worked at nightclubs for a while, but it didn't last, and now she was drifting from job to job. She might want to escape the judgmental eyes of her hometown, but she didn't have the money to move right away after the divorce and cutting ties with her family. It seemed she would be facing hard times for a while.
Sarah was such a beauty, but now she's a mess. Without makeup, she doesn't even have eyebrows. She's like a different person.
Even hearing this, I felt no pity. I only wished she would suffer for a long time. I realized that I had finally moved on for real. Thanks for letting me know, but I don't need any more updates. She's no longer my daughter. I should have realized it sooner. Do you think if I had raised her differently, things would have turned out better? Emily pondered my question for a moment. Then she spoke carefully.
I'm sorry, I don't know. That's something only Mike might answer. If you ever see him again, ask him. He loved you so much. No matter how long you live, I'm sure he'll be there to welcome you on the other side.
Her words, understanding me so well, were comforting. I thanked her sincerely. Since the encounter at my parents' house, I hadn't heard directly from Sarah. I had blocked her number, and she hadn't tried to contact Mike's parents either. I was sure we would never have any contact again, except maybe when one of us crossed the Rainbow Bridge. I heard that Tyler had also left town. As a result of Tyler's parents being genuinely furious about the recent events, he was sent to work at a distant construction site where he had to live on site. Rumor had it that he wouldn't be back for at least 10 years. I hoped he would suffer and reflect on his actions too. Hey, where should we live next? I want a place with a beautiful view. I spoke to Mike's portrait. His smiling photo gazed at me with the same gentle eyes. Even though I wanted to move far away, I couldn't find the perfect place, and ended up living at my parents' house for over 6 months. During that time, something surprising happened. I received a letter from Mike. It was a letter that Mike had entrusted to his parents while he was still alive, with instructions to give it to me once things had settled down. They delivered it to my parents' house, explaining that the delay was due to the chaos caused by Sarah. Oh, Mike. Seeing his familiar handwriting made my eyes well up. The slightly shaky lines indicated he had written it when his illness was advanced. The letter was filled with Mike's love.
Viola, thank you for walking with me until the end. I wasn't a perfect husband or father, but I was always happy because you were there. I want you to enjoy the rest of your life for yourself. Don't let anyone hold you back. Leave behind what you need to. I wish you happiness and bright days. I love you.
I read and reread the letter, tracing the words with my fingers. As I did, memories of my time with Mike came flooding back. Despite his illness, Mike had left me many fond memories, even though there wasn't much of an inheritance. I know. I want to climb the mountain we climbed together when we were newlyweds. Suddenly inspired, I started preparing for the trip. I quit my part-time job to move, so I have plenty of time now. Luckily, my parents are quite well off, so I don't have to worry about living expenses for now. Currently, I'm on an overseas trip with Emily, reminiscing about the trip to Switzerland I took with Mike in our younger days. We arrived in Switzerland and took the mountain train to the summit station. In the unchanged scenery, I feel a sense of renewal as the wind blows. I've been thinking about relocating somewhere with my parents. How about Vermont? There are a lot of people who have moved to places like Burlington, and it seems like a fun place to live. I share my dreams while enjoying the cool Swiss breeze. Maybe it's because I'm far from the US, but the air seems different here. Emily chuckles and responds,
Where I live is pretty nice too, and it's cool there. There are quite a few older folks, so your parents might find it comfortable.
She lives in the highlands of Colorado. I can imagine it's a quiet and nice place. I'm excited about the idea of living either by myself or with my parents, and where we might settle down. I'll discuss it well with my parents and make sure they'll be happy. I want to do a lot for my parents. much more than I have until now. And I want to cherish my friends. Maybe start working part-time again. The sunrise viewed from the mountain hut is beautiful, filling me with a sense of a bright future. Following Mike's letter, I believe there will be shining days of happiness ahead as I continue to live my life. When my son suddenly disappeared, my husband didn't offer any support. Even at our final farewell to our son, he didn't shed a single tear.
He's always in my way. Because of him, I
no longer need my husband who glares at my son's portrait. My hands, trembling with anger, held our son's suicide note. Now, I will take revenge on my husband on behalf of my son. My name is Emily. I'm a 53-year-old part-time housewife. My husband and I were high school classmates. He wasn't very noticeable in class, and I was drawn to his plain and remarkable nature, which is how we started dating. After graduation, my husband went to college in New York, while I got a job as an office worker at a small construction company in our hometown. Long-distance relationships don't last.
The train fare is too expensive. It's your fault, Emily, for not going to college.
He complained all the time, and with my job getting busier, it only took about a year for our relationship to fizzle out naturally. So why did we get married? Because we ran into each other by chance after he graduated from college and returned home for his job. I felt relieved by his unchanged, unsophisticated demeanor. Looking back now, I realize it was a mistake to rush into marriage just before turning 30. He was stingy and always blamed others when something happened. Though our marriage was more of a stubborn bond, having one son and one daughter was a blessing. A new season of life arrived for our family. Our 23-year-old son brought home a lovely young woman.
Mom, I'm bringing a guest over this Sunday. Someone Dad knows.
What? I was surprised when I got the call. I never imagined he would bring his fiancée. My son Tyler had always been shy and quiet since childhood, not the type to approach women.
I always thought he was handsome and would be popular.
However, my daughter Anna, 2 years younger than him, noticed and blessed Tyler's engagement. My husband John and I were both restless that morning. Tyler said on the phone that you know the person he's bringing?
Huh. What's her name again?
John awkwardly responded to my question. I didn't ask that much. We would be introduced when they announced the engagement today. I didn't know either. I thought it might be a cashier from the store John frequents or someone from his workplace. Looking back, maybe I was too carefree. I was excited about the fact that our son was bringing a woman home for the first time. If only I had noticed John's uneasy demeanor.
My name is Rachel. I met Tyler through my friend. Nice to meet you.
Rachel, what a lovely name. She's too good for Tyler. I replied to the confident woman's introduction with a typical motherly remark. Honestly, I thought my son was the one who was too good for her. Like my husband, our son had gone to college in the city, then returned home and got his job at a food company. When he decided to rent an apartment close to his workplace, I was disappointed. But when he handed me a spare key and asked me to come over and cook his favorite dishes, I was thrilled. He's my pride and joy, always valuing me. Through my biased parental eyes, I saw Rachel as mismatched with my good-natured son.
Oh, Rachel, I think I might have met you at that restaurant during a business dinner.
John scratched the back of his head and said, as he seemed to remember her after hearing her introduction. As a sales manager, John often used that restaurant for client entertainment, so Rachel had remembered him as a regular customer. A middle-aged man who could be found anywhere, my husband. The only thing that probably stuck in Rachel's memory was his business card title.
Oh, I see. So that's how you knew about Dad. Rachel, you're beautiful. I think I'm not worthy of you.
That's not true. I love Tyler's face.
She blushed and wrapped her arm around Tyler's as he tried to be humble. I never raised my son to flirt in front of his parents, but I guess it's understandable since he had no experience with women. Getting married at 23. It seemed a bit early for my son, who was just in his second year as a working adult. But if they felt happy, I truly wanted to bless their union. At that moment, I didn't notice the flames of jealousy burning in my husband's eyes, something I now regret. 6 months after their wedding went smoothly. Barely having time to relax after the weight of the wedding was lifted, I found myself busy with part-time work and tidying up my house. Although they initially planned to live alone in an apartment, Tyler changed his mind during their honeymoon and wanted to live with us. Did Rachel agree to live with us?
Of course. Rachel lost her mom when she was young, and she wants you to teach her things.
Oh, I see. I was hesitant about welcoming a newlywed couple into our 20-year-old house, but it was Tyler's strong wish. I couldn't just lament about the extra work.
I'd love to live together again, but feel free to use my room too.
My daughter Anna, who had just graduated from college, rented an apartment nearby to help out the newlyweds. After discussing with John, we decided to renovate the kitchen, bathroom, and toilet so the newlyweds could use them comfortably.
Mom, thank you. It feels like a new house. You even renovated it for us.
Moving day. While carrying in the luggage, Tyler spoke with sparkling eyes. Your new bed is a wedding gift from Dad.
Thanks, Dad.
As parents, it's the least we could do. Rachel, do you like the mattress?
My husband squinted with delight at his daughter-in-law, happily jumping on the bed.
We'll pay back the renovation costs when we can.
What? Don't be cocky. We don't expect repayment from you with your small income.
Though he was all smiles with Rachel, John was cold to our earnest Tyler. The constant work and lack of affection for the children had caused this. Not sure if he wanted to show his authority as a father, but after that day, John's attitude toward Tyler became arrogant.
Don't they have any sense of propriety? Just because it's a day off doesn't mean they should sleep in.
It's fine. They're newlyweds. They want to spend time alone, I said with a smile, trying to calm John's anger. If my son had married 10 years later, we might have had the luxury to build a 2-family house. But this was sudden, and we couldn't manage that. Since the kitchen, toilet, and bathroom were shared with us, John's routine was disrupted, and he was irritated. I'll leave their breakfast in the fridge. I'm off to my part-time job. Sale days needed all hands on deck. I hurriedly took off my apron while checking the time.
What about our lunch?
Huh? I had hoped for a have a good day from him. His childish comment, still thinking only of himself, left me feeling uneasy. "I've made your lunch too. It's in the fridge." Tyler said they're eating out.
None of them understand. How do they think I can eat alone? I'm going to the casino for a change of pace.
Throwing the newspaper he was reading onto the couch, John grabbed his jacket roughly and left the room. "I'm sorry, honey. I really can't take the day off today." I wonder if my voice reached his back. Even if it didn't, that's fine. I don't expect anything from my husband, who gets paranoid and feels neglected. Oh, marriage really is a series of endurance tests.
Mom, it's been a while. Dad seemed grumpy. Did something happen?
I turned around to the voice behind me and saw Anna standing there. "Oh, Anna, your dad is just having one of his usual tantrums, acting like a child at his age."
No way. I can't stand that about him.
True, but we should still be grateful he's provided for the family all these years, right?
Yeah, I guess. It'd be better if he wasn't so bossy, though. I can't stand his grumpy face.
Remember how your drawings of Dad always had him looking angry? Haha. A daughter really is a treasure. Talking about old times with her made my grievances about John shrink away. You seem to be doing well, Anna. I have to head to my part-time job now. I'll be back by evening.
Yeah, but I can't wait until evening. I came by to talk to Tyler about something.
Oh, I see. Tyler and Rachel are probably still sleeping upstairs.
Got it. Those two are always so lovey-dovey. It's almost too much.
Anna laughed while looking up at the living room ceiling. But her eyes weren't laughing. I sensed she was worried about something. I wish she had called ahead. I would have loved to make her favorite meal. With a heavy heart, I left for my part-time job. That evening, John didn't come home. He usually only plays slot machines for an hour at most. But the lunch I had prepared for him was still untouched in the fridge. As dinner time approached and he still hadn't called, I started to worry.
Mom, welcome back. You must be tired.
Whoa. I was surprised to hear Tyler's voice, thinking he wasn't home. Tyler, weren't you out with Rachel today?
Yeah, we were. But
he smiled weakly. He had seemed so happy and bright since getting married, but now he looked downcast. Did you two have a fight? They say married couples' quarrels are private matters. By the way, did Anna come by?
Yeah, she did. We talked a bit.
Maybe she's met someone nice. Maybe she's thinking about marriage and needed to talk to Tyler. They've always been very close siblings. Whenever Anna fell and cried, Tyler would immediately pick her up and pat her head. I have countless lovely memories of them in the photo albums, enough to win a contest of brothers comforting sisters. I'll make dinner for you too. I found some good meat on sale today. Let's have steak.
Thanks, Mom. I don't think Rachel will be back in time for dinner, so let's just eat together, you and me.
Is that so? Tyler seemed to know neither his wife nor his dad would be back for dinner. It was the first time since they moved in that I'd have dinner alone with Tyler.
Mom, this is delicious. Thank you, as always.
Every time he spoke, Tyler expressed his gratitude. Hearing that warmed me to my core. It relieved my fatigue more than any expensive bath salts. Later that night, John finally came home. He was in a great mood, even humming a tune. "What were you doing out so late?"
It's none of your business.
His mood was good, but his attitude was still bad. Better to let sleeping dogs lie. I took great care not to mention John's messy, thinning hair.
Where's Tyler? Is he already asleep?
Well, yes, probably. Normally, he would ask about both Tyler and Rachel, but the fact that he only asked about Tyler felt strange. You know, I had dinner with Tyler tonight, just the two of us. He was such a picky eater as a child, but tonight he finished a huge steak.
What? You two had a feast without me? Whose money do you think you're spending?
I saved some for you. It's your fault for not coming home.
There you go, talking back again. If you were younger and quieter, I wouldn't have done what I did.
What? What did you do? Realizing he had slipped, my husband clamped his mouth shut. Could it be debt? Or worse, embezzlement from his company? There was a reason for my hasty assumptions. John had a high income for someone in his 50s, and given his appearance, I was certain he had no immoral relationships with women.
Dad, you're home early.
Tyler's voice cut through the tension between us.
Oh, Tyler, you startled me.
Dad, we need to talk.
Tyler looked troubled. I assumed Rachel wanted to end the cohabitation and that Tyler was about to break the news. I'd like to hear it too.
Sorry, Mom. I need to last talk to Dad alone, man to man.
Hearing man to man, I held my tongue. When I looked at John, he seemed annoyed, yet somewhat defensive.
Fine. I'll go upstairs.
It was the first time Tyler had ever confronted his dad like this. Maybe he finally saw himself as an equal now that he was an adult. I felt relieved, but also uneasy about what he meant by last talk. A sense of foreboding filled the air. I watched their backs as they went upstairs, feeling anxious. I never found out what they talked about that night, but John's face was pale when he came back down. I pretended to be asleep to avoid making his mood worse. The next morning's breakfast felt like a funeral. John, Tyler, and Rachel ate in silence. I couldn't bring myself to ask when she came home, so I said, "Good morning, Rachel. Did you and Tyler have a fight yesterday?" I tried to sound cheerful.
Silence.
Don't ask unnecessary questions.
John snapped at me, shielding the silent Rachel.
I'm sorry, Mom.
Why are you apologizing, Tyler?
Stop saying unnecessary things.
Frustrated with John's yelling every time I spoke, I went to hang the laundry. Little did I know, those would be Tyler's final words. That evening, Tyler was gone. Tyler, what happened? Why? I received the call from the police and took a taxi to the hospital where Tyler was taken. It felt like I was in a dream, like I was watching a TV drama. I couldn't stop shaking in the taxi. I called John and Rachel's phones multiple times until I got to the hospital, but neither answered. When I contacted John's company, they told me he had taken 3 days of paid leave. The unexpected information made me so angry and panicked that I felt like I was going to throw up.
Mom, what happened to Tyler?
Anna had arrived at the hospital before me. When she saw me, she ran over with tear-swollen eyes. I don't know what's going on, I can't reach your dad or Rachel.
Unforgivable.
What? I held my trembling daughter, who was shaking with anger, and supported her as we faced the lifeless Tyler.
We did everything we could, but unfortunately,
According to the doctor, Tyler had suddenly run into the road and was hit by an unavoidable car. The driver was still being questioned by the police, so the details were unclear, but they suspected Tyler had dashed out to save a kitten in the road.
there's not a scratch on his face.
Tyler, Tyler.
Tyler, Tyler.
Our cries echoed through the room, and I desperately prayed it was all a dream. After confirming it was my son, there was no time to grieve. I was overwhelmed with the hospital procedures, arranging his funeral, and contacting Tyler's workplace. I called Rachel and John hundreds of times throughout the day, but their phones were out of service range. I nearly fainted several times. With the help of Anna and my parents, I managed to get through the funeral preparations.
What's he doing?
That's when my dad, Tom, finally exploded with anger. Rachel's father looked for his daughter, who should be the chief mourner, but he complained that he couldn't reach her. I contacted John's company, and they said he took 3 days of paid leave. Maybe he's blocked my number.
Who goes on vacation at a time like this? Fine, I'll call him.
My dad called John. Apparently, John couldn't ignore his call. My dad's raised voice echoed through the wake.
You better be back by tomorrow.
John had gone to Alaska by plane, and he was with Rachel. I didn't hear a word about them traveling together. Was he lonely eating lunch alone? Was it because Tyler and I had a nice dinner? Even if it was to spite me, going on a trip with his daughter-in-law was incredibly childish. I was too shocked to say anything and could only curse Tyler's bad luck on the day of the accident. On the day of the funeral, Rachel and John showed up, their faces full of displeasure.
He's always in my way. Because of him, I'm unhappy. He took everything from me. I just took it back.
John glared at Tyler's portrait.
We were supposed to have a nice salmon dinner. Just the two of us.
Are you even a father?
My dad's booming voice silenced John. Rachel hid behind him, intimidated by my dad's anger. In that moment, the unease I had been feeling finally made sense. If she were truly his wife, wouldn't she be crying and wailing over Tyler's body? Why was the supposedly loving new bride seeking comfort from my balding husband?
Rachel, it's going to be all right.
What?
Huh?
No one understood what he meant by all right, and the attendees all looked puzzled. As the funeral began, they both covered their eyes with handkerchiefs and started crying.
Tyler, why did you leave me? How am I supposed to live without you?
Tyler, call me Dad one more time. Tyler.
Their exaggerated crying seemed designed to elicit sympathy from the attendees. But I saw it. I saw them exchange a smile through their tears. Were they planning something? I wanted to confront them then and there, but I held back. This was my precious son's farewell. As the funeral neared its end, it was time to read Tyler's letter.
He left a letter?
It's Tyler's last words. I only found out about it yesterday. Right. The letter was sent from Tyler to Anna. She hadn't opened it, thinking it was meant for me. Naturally, I read it as soon as it was handed to me. It made my blood boil.
What does it say?
Don't rush. I'll share Tyler's thoughts with everyone now. My hands trembled with rage as I held Tyler's letter. Now, I would seek revenge for my son against my husband. I decided to read the letter myself and stood before the microphone. The first part of the letter would be impossible to read without tears. But it was Tyler's testament to his 23 years of life. With Anna supporting me, I took a deep breath and began to read. The letter started with words of gratitude to his friends, grandparents, mentors, bosses, and colleagues. Then came words of love and thanks to his beloved sister, Anna, saying he would always be watching over her. To me, he expressed his thanks for giving birth to him. And apologies for worrying me. It's okay to worry your parents. You don't have to apologize. Remembering his final words, my heart ached with the desire to hold him tight one last time. I could hear sobs from the attendees. At the same time, whispers of confusion spread. There were no words for his dad or his wife. And why would there be a will if he died in an accident?
Could it be that Tyler?
My mom, Mary, voiced the question on everyone's mind. Could he have taken his own life? Honestly, I didn't know. Saying I don't know so easily makes me a failed mother. I held back my tears, bit my lip, and continued reading the letter.
To Dad, thank you for taking care of me for 23 years.
John's face brightened instantly as he glared at our son's portrait. He wanted to appear as a good father in front of the relatives. But that wasn't going to happen.
I found out about you and Rachel. I married her knowing it was before she and I met, but finding out it continued shocked me.
The room had expected more words of gratitude. The attendees began to murmur. Everyone's eyes were now on John and Rachel. Rachel seemed to sense something and turned pale.
I understand now why Rachel wanted to live with my parents during the honeymoon.
She must have been sweating coldly. Rachel clutched her handkerchief, trembling.
The big bed you gave us as a wedding gift, Dad, was for you and Rachel.
Stop it. Please, don't read anymore.
Rachel tried to snatch the letter from my hand. But her father, Thomas, grabbed her firmly.
Shame on you. I didn't raise you to be like this.
Holding her by the neck, Thomas restrained her as she cried.
Are you saying I had an affair with Rachel? Where's the proof? Plenty of fathers-in-law and daughters-in-law go out together.
John shouted, trying to brazen it out.
I have proof. A friend from my college told me about you too.
What?
It's a small world. The friend's house, where you used to go for business dinners, is the restaurant where Rachel worked. The owner's kid knows Rachel. She was the one who introduced her to Tyler.
Damn it.
Dad and Rachel weren't just eating there. They were kissing too.
What? Don't be ridiculous.
I was torn about whether to tell Tyler, but I never imagined it would come to this.
Anna, who had been speaking strongly, began to cry. Even if Anna hadn't revealed the truth, Tyler would have found out about their relationship eventually. I decided to read the rest of the letter.
Anna told me, but I had already suspected. Anna, don't blame yourself. Can you expose Dad on my behalf? Please tell everyone.
Hearing those words, Anna collapsed.
You're the worst.
Scum.
Heartless.
Voices condemning John rained down, and he too collapsed. For the final blow, I continued reading Tyler's letter.
The father I once knew is gone. I'm grateful you put me through college, but I can't call someone who strayed from the right path my parent. My only true parent is Mom, Dad, and Rachel. The guilt for hurting my precious mom and Anna is heavy. Please leave our home immediately. Mom, I'm sorry for being such a son. I wish I could have eaten more of your cooking. Mom, I'm sorry. Thank you.
My face was a mess of tears by the time I finished reading. Tyler, my sweet son and first child, a kind of Anna's big brother, my treasure. Despite being the one who suffered the most, you were worried about me and Anna. I will never forgive you too. I shouted at John and Rachel with all the force I could muster. After the funeral, I divorced John.
I was jealous. He looked better, was smarter, and even married Rachel, who I liked. Because of him,
He kept mumbling, but quieted down when I demanded a hefty alimony. I don't need such a childish husband. My son cut the toxic bond for me. I kicked John out of the house. Yes, along with that big bed. I didn't want it. What happened to my daughter-in-law after that? When she went crying to her parents, her father firmly told her, "I disown you." With no other choice, she rented an apartment, but she's too ashamed to step outside. She'll have to work to survive, though. Let her live in fear of the neighbors' eyes for the rest of her life. She might as well rot away with John for all I care. As for John, some of his colleagues were at the funeral and word spread about his despicable behavior. He was shunned by the female employees and eventually quit because he couldn't bear the shame. He deserves it. Let him suffer for all the pain he caused our son. Anna and I started our new life. She decided to move back home to help me out since living alone on a part-time job was tough.
After I graduate from college, I want to live with you, Mom, and Tyler will be here too.
The living room is filled with photos of Tyler and Anna together. In the photos, Tyler is smiling kindly, patting his sister's head. 5 years later, Anna got married and stayed with me. She recently gave birth to her baby boy.
No matter what happens, I'll cherish this child.
She's fully embraced her role as a mother.
Look, he smiled. He looks just like Tyler when he was a baby.
Yes, the eyes are very similar. I squinted at a photo of Tyler as a baby. Then, as I gently patted my son's picture, I whispered, "I miss you, Tyler."
Mom, I'm always with you.
It felt like I heard his voice, and I wiped away a tear.
I found myself restless and unable to sleep on the sofa at 6 a.m. When I checked my smartphone, there was a message from Harry. It seems the baby has been safely born. John, wake up. Catherine has given birth safely. We're heading to the hospital. I woke my husband sleeping next to me, and we quickly started getting ready. Catherine, Harry. When we arrived at the hospital room, besides the two of them, there was another new little life that I had to call by name. What's its name? Have you decided?
No, we hadn't even asked the gender, so we decided to choose a name after the baby's birth. By the way, it's a girl.
That's wonderful. I hope you can find a lovely name for her. Our granddaughter was asleep in Catherine's arms on the bed. Seeing her, I was reminded of Catherine as a baby.
Mom, do you want to hold her?
Can I? Then let me hold her. Her sleeping face, her weight, her smell, everything was just like Catherine's. Her adorable, innocent appearance naturally made us smile. Look, it's Grandma Mary and Grandpa John. Just as I was about to pass the little one to my husband, it happened. His face was drenched in sweat, and his body shook violently. What's wrong?
Don't bring that child close to me.
What was happening? Thinking I might have misheard, I looked at their faces, and both of them had their eyes wide open. It was clear that this was not a misunderstanding.
What are you saying, Dad?
Are you feeling all right?
No, it's different. I feel an intense heat from that child. I don't want to remember, but it's like the terrible heat from that fire.
John, is there anything I can do to help? My husband John is blind. 3 years ago, there was a major fire at the chemical plant where he worked, and unfortunately, he suffered burns to his eyes. Fortunately, he survived, but since then, he has lost his sight.
Mary, I'm okay for now.
But his spirit remained untouched by these trials, still bright and kind. The amount of pain, conflict, and effort that went into it is unimaginable. One can imagine, but to say they truly understand would be a lie. Call me anytime if you need anything.
I'm used to it by now. You can relax a bit.
He always says that, but he never truly feels at ease, always worrying both physically and mentally. Yet, despite his misfortune, my husband has a peculiar talent. Through conversation, he can glimpse the true intentions of others. He says, it's just a sense, not a superpower, but to an outsider, it might well seem like a remarkable ability. It's well known that blindness can heighten other senses, and there are theories to support this. In John's case, his already keen sense of other people's emotions seemed to have sharpened even more after losing his sight. That's why both I and our daughter Catherine often find ourselves asking for his judgment, a bad habit, because we rely on him so much. He is indeed a dependable figure. Most recently, when Catherine brought her boyfriend over, his sixth sense proved to be a valuable validation. About a week ago.
Let me introduce him. This is Harry.
Nice to meet you. I'm Harry Wilson. I'm seeing your wonderful daughter, Catherine.
Harry was well-mannered and neatly dressed, a real gentleman. And whether he was fearless or just managed to hide his nerves, he actively engaged in conversation. In this case, it was Catherine who was more nervous. It was understandably so, as her father possesses the ability to read between the lines of what others say. If something caught his attention, it would inevitably come up later. He was aware that my husband is blind, but naturally, he didn't know about his special ability to read between the lines. Despite that, even without relying on my husband, there were no obvious oddities or visibly suspicious aspects to be seen. On the contrary, I felt that he spoke in a way that considered my husband, and personally, I had a very good impression of him. The two of them originally met as colleagues at work and became close through their interactions both at work and in private. My husband listened intently to their conversation. As the sun set and it became dark, my husband shared his thoughts about Harry.
Regardless of his looks, he seems like a good person.
Hearing this, Catherine and I let out a big sigh of relief. Of course, it was a sigh of relief. On a whim, I tried to explain to my husband what Harry looked like by comparing him to a celebrity he resembled.
Oh, come on, that personality with that look. He's so perfect he might attract the wrong crowd,
he said with a wry smile. Since then, Harry has often come to our house with Catherine. Even now, he is considerate of my husband's blindness and truly sincere. I felt deep relief and joy without any shred of worry that Catherine would marry someone like him. Then, a simple question crossed my mind. Can I ask you something?
Yes, what is it?
Harry, you're such a good person. I'd love to know about your parents too. Could you tell me about them if you don't mind? After a moment of uncomfortable silence, he smiled bitterly and apologetically declined.
I'm sorry. I lost my parents in an earthquake when I was young.
Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that. I shouldn't have asked such a thing. Yet his demeanor remained unchanged.
No, it's okay. It can't be helped. But, may I talk a little about it?
His humility and consideration for others impressed me. I felt I must respond in kind. Yes, of course. Say anything you like.
Because I no longer have my parents, I often reflect on these things. I wasn't able to properly honor them, so if there's a chance to do so by proxy, I would. I think it would make them happy, and it would also give me some peace.
To me, this confession sounded like a cry from the heart. It was a torrent of emotions that could hardly be fathomed.
So, it might sound strange, but I see some of my parents in you. I want to make sure I have no regrets this time around.
As he finished speaking, I noticed that my husband had quietly appeared in the shadows. He listened to Harry's voice and nodded silently. For me, that was the greatest confirmation. Time passed, and the two were happily married. The wedding went smoothly, and afterwards, Harry moved into our house. Even after marriage, he continued to be considerate, especially towards my husband. However, there's one concern. Our house has a garden facing south, raised a step from the road, and sometimes trash is scattered there. 3 times last week, twice this week. I thought maybe a bird like a crow dropped it, but it seemed too coincidental. But even if someone was doing it on purpose, it wasn't harmful enough to make a fuss, so I decided to keep it to myself for now. Time has passed since early summer. Catherine and Harry announced they were expecting. It was truly a joyous occasion. While it was manageable with just Harry moving in, adding another person meant we had to consider moving. Considering my husband's blindness, opting for a barrier-free property wasn't a bad idea. That night, we discussed such matters. Bump. Suddenly, there was a rustling noise from the bushes at the front of the garden.
What was that?
It wasn't the gentle sound of the winds moving things. It was more like something forceful had passed through. It made me uneasy. I couldn't always rely on my husband in these situations. Determined, I grabbed the edge of the curtain and pulled it open with a decisive motion. Wow.
What's wrong? What happened?
There, lying on the lush greenery in the darkness, was the carcass of a crow. At that moment, I was sure of it. The trash in the front yard wasn't the work of crows or other animals, but a person with clear malicious intent. After reporting it to the police and having them take care of the remains, I explained the situation and my suspicions to my family.
Why didn't you say something?
Until now, the trash seemed like it could have just blown in with the wind. It's not far from the trash disposal, and I thought it might have been birds.
Well, let's think about what we can do. There's not much, but still.
Right. Maybe raising the fence would help, but it's not a fundamental solution.
Then, maybe we should get a security camera.
After discussing various opinions, we decided to install a security camera. About a week after the camera was installed, Catherine, who was pregnant, noticed trash again in the yard. "Let's see who it is," she said eagerly as she checked the camera, and the perpetrator was identified quite easily. The security footage clearly showed a woman with long black hair tossing a trash bag. Her build and even her face were clearly visible. Catherine murmured softly,
I feel like I've seen this person somewhere.
She pondered for a while, but couldn't recall, so they decided to wait for Harry to come home. That night, when Harry got home, he quickly recognized her.
It's Emily. I know her.
He explained that she had been making advances towards him for some time. Initially, he had declined her indirectly, but as her advances became more intense, he revealed his relationship with Catherine and rejected her definitively. Given this, it wasn't hard to imagine her resorting to such drastic measures.
Ah, that's why she looked familiar.
But I wonder if the police will take it seriously. You know, I've heard they often don't do much about stalkers.
With this solid evidence, I think they will. Anyway, we should explain everything to them.
Contrary to my worries, the police took the matter very seriously. Thanks to that, Emily received a stern warning from the police, and her company made her sign a statement to stay away from Catherine and Harry, and then transferred her to another region. It was indeed harassment, as suspected. Interestingly, her malice was directed not so much at Harry, but at Catherine, whom she saw as the woman who stole Harry from her. A classic case of misdirected anger. Nevertheless, peace returned to our home. The due date approached in no time. Catherine's pregnancy progressed, and she was soon admitted to the hospital for delivery. Preparing for the hospital stay, the postpartum needs, and other things kept me busy, and it all reminded me of the past. Catherine had a difficult birth, a tremendous ordeal. Though it was over 20 years ago, I remember it as if it were yesterday. Realizing that I was now the one watching over her, I felt deeply moved. Catherine went into labor at night. Therefore, my husband and I stayed home, and only Harry accompanied her.
I'm looking forward to it.
His words seemed a mix of genuine anticipation and a touch of sorrow. And no wonder, for he would not be able to see the face of his first grandchild. While I was struggling to respond, my husband seemed to have read my mind and softly added,
I've never deeply regretted losing my sight, but this time it really hurts. I wish I could have seen our grandchild's face.
In that case, I'll see enough for both of us. I promised to be your eyes, didn't I?
What can I say to that? It's out of our hands, and it's a tough question.
It seems my husband could see right through the finer details.
Even with this strange ability, I can't see our grandchild's face. Mary, would you join me for a drink?
Yes, of course. That would be fine. There's only so much I can do. If soothing him with a drink helps, I'm more than willing to do so. Restless and unable to sleep, I found myself on the sofa at 6 a.m. When I checked my smartphone, there was a message from Harry. It seems the baby has been safely born. John, wake up. Catherine has given birth safely. We're heading to the hospital. I woke my husband sleeping next to me, and we quickly started getting ready. On a weekday morning, the hospital seemed quieter than usual. There were few people around, and some in pajamas, likely patients, were at the store. Among them, a shadow that seemed suspicious without saying why caught my attention. This figure didn't seem inherently suspicious, but there was something distinctly out of place about it. My husband sensed something too.
Something feels off. Is someone there?
When I mentioned the figure, he murmured, "Don't go near recklessly," and tapped the floor with his cane. I took my husband's hand and began walking, glancing back at the figure. Catherine, Harry. When we arrived at the hospital room, besides the two of them, there was another new little life that needed a name.
Good morning, you two. How are you feeling?
Good morning. We're fine. The baby is healthy too.
That's great.
As he said this, my husband grimaced, so I quickly had him sit down. Asking if he felt unwell, he seemed fine, so we decided to share our joy instead. What's the name? Have you decided?
No, we hadn't even asked the gender, so we decided to choose a name after the baby's birth. By the way, it's a girl.
That's wonderful. I hope you can find a lovely name for her. Our granddaughter was sleeping in Catherine's arms on the bed. Seeing her, I was reminded of Catherine as a baby.
Mom, do you want to hold her?
Can I? Then let me hold her. Her sleeping face, her weight, her smell, everything was just like Catherine's. Her adorable, innocent appearance naturally made us smile. Look, it's Grandma Mary and Grandpa John. Just as I was about to pass the little one to my husband, it happened. His face was drenched in sweat, and his body shook violently. What's wrong?
Don't bring that child close to me.
What was happening? Thinking I might have misheard, I looked at their faces, and both of them had their eyes wide open. It was clear that this was not a misunderstanding.
What are you saying, Dad?
Are you feeling all right?
No, it's different. I feel an intense heat from that child. I don't want to remember, but it's like the terrible heat from that fire.
Could it be that he sensed something from this baby? After entrusting our granddaughter to Catherine, I stayed close to my husband. His shaking gradually subsided, but he was still breathing heavily. Are you okay?
Yeah, I've calmed down a bit. Mary, can we talk for a bit?
Yes, of course. I followed him out of the hospital room where our daughter and others were. We found a seating area a little way down the corridor, and I let him know.
I'm sorry for startling you. The baby is fine.
Can you tell me what happened? After a pause, he began to explain.
I must have picked up on someone's emotions nearby. It was more intense than anything I've ever felt before, like burning resentment or anger. It was so vivid, it threw me off. Sorry, the timing was bad.
Don't apologize. It's not something you can control. Resentment and anger. Unfortunately, I had an idea what it could be related to. That woman, Emily. Is she who was given a stern warning by the police and a written reprimand and transfer by her company coming close again? I knew it was a long shot, but I couldn't dismiss the possibility. Could it be? Before I could finish, my husband interjected.
It's not impossible. Remember, I mentioned someone suspicious in the lobby earlier. They might still be around. Can you check?
Understood. I enlisted Harry's help for the search. Walking around with my husband and Catherine wasn't feasible, and alone, I might not recognize the person. Harry could move freely and knew Emily's face well, so I asked him to accompany me. However, despite covering almost every accessible area, we couldn't find her, and we returned to the hospital room empty-handed. After all, it was better if it turned out to be nothing.
Either way, the hospital is safer. There are more people around, and I can stay with Catherine and our baby. Mary, you should go home and rest.
That makes sense. Please take good care of Catherine.
Understood. Oh, and call me if anything happens.
Thus, restraining our restless feelings, we soon headed home. I didn't show it, but I wished I could have seen our granddaughter's face more. I wonder who she resembles more, Catherine or Harry. What name will she be given? It seems like another sleepless night ahead, worrying about these things. A few hours after returning home, in the evening, my husband began to speak uneasily again.
There it is again. I feel that burning heat. What is this?
Apparently, it's not something that a hospital can treat. It seems his unusual ability might be picking up on even stronger emotions and acting out. The problem is this strong emotion. For now, there's only one likely cause, and it's quite dangerous. I seriously started to think about what to do next. I wanted to call the police immediately, but lacked solid proof. If I were to confront the person, it might not only be futile, but also life-threatening. That's when I remembered the security cameras. Maybe checking those would give us some evidence. Excited, I went to check, but unfortunately, they showed nothing. Just when I felt at a dead end, like a lifeline from heaven, a glimmer of hope shone through. A message vibrated on my smartphone. It was from Harry.
Is everything okay on your end?
Despite my reluctance to interrupt their first private moment as parent and child, it was inevitable that I had to ask for his help. When I told Harry everything as it was, he quickly responded,
Understood. I'm on my way now.
I was overwhelmed with a feeling of lack of help. It was frustrating to be able to do nothing but wait during such a time. Even though I fully understood that it wasn't my fault, I couldn't help but feel this way. About 30 minutes later, Harry came back. My husband mentioned, "The heat I feel is getting stronger." If taken literally, it seemed like evil was closing in. We immediately went around the house to search, and I took a broom for self-defense. The sun had fully set, and while it wasn't pitch black, it was quite dim. This only served to drive our fear even further. There was a sudden noise. Neither Harry nor I missed the unusual noise. It came from the back of the house and was clearly accompanied by the presence of someone.
Mary, I'll go check the back. Just in case, please call the police.
I did as he suggested, returning inside to call the police.
Subject secured. Repeat, the subject is secured.
Incredibly, there really was someone lurking there. At a glance, the profile was unmistakably that woman, Emily. Without causing a scene, she was led into a police car by several officers. According to the police, she was found holding arson materials and a lighter. The worst possible outcome that suggested was clear. Once I knew we were safe, I suddenly felt so relieved that my legs gave out.
Are you okay?
Yes, I'm fine. My legs just went weak with relief. Harry's brave actions were commendable, but without my husband's unusual ability, who knows what could have happened. My husband, meanwhile, had calmed down completely and returned to his usual cheerful self.
There's a lot to process, but I guess it all turned out all right. Maybe I'm more incredible than I thought.
More than you think. It's practically supernatural.
Yeah. If I were younger, maybe I could have used it to help people more.
I later learned that Emily had indeed tried to infiltrate the hospital where Catherine was staying, looking for a chance to cause harm. Worse still, this time her target was not Harry or Catherine, but our newborn granddaughter. Behind it all was a selfish grudge fueled by rumors at her transferred location that she was stalking and sent there, forcing her to resign due to losing her place. But on the day, overwhelmed by the presence of so many people, she abandoned her plan and decided to set our house on fire instead. The heat my husband felt was undoubtedly this evil intent. After she was taken away by the police, she awaited the appropriate legal punishment. Just when I thought true peace had arrived, something unexpected happened. Suddenly, people claiming to be Emily's parents showed up.
We are very sorry for the trouble our daughter caused.
When she is released, we'll take her back home and keep a close watch on her.
It seemed they weren't exactly seeking forgiveness, but my husband was not home. He had gone that morning with Harry to pick up Catherine from the hospital. While their sincerity was apparent, I couldn't quite grasp the true intent behind their words. Naturally, I didn't invite them in, but managed the situation at the door and then saw them off. Afterward, A chilling question sprouted in my mind. Why did they know where our house was? Realizing this, I decided it was essential to expedite our previously considered plans to move. After Catherine safely returned home and our family grew by one, I didn't hold back in explaining everything that had happened.
With things like this happening, we really need to move quickly.
My husband took the lead, and together with Harry and me, we set out to sense the energy of various places. Fortunately, we all agreed on a nice plot of land and house that felt right, so we decided to live there as a family of 5. I realized for the first time that I hadn't fully believed in my husband's special ability. But after this ordeal, he proved he could save the lives of our entire family. This is no longer just a special skill, it might truly be a supernatural ability. The new house is a comfortable, barrier-free property. It's not only kind to my husband, but also to our new family member, Sophia. This should give some peace of mind to me, Catherine, and Harry as well. Now, nothing threatens us. I'm genuinely looking forward to starting anew in this place. But still. Hey Harry, can I ask you something?
Yes? What is it? Do you need help with something?
No, it's not that. I was just wondering, are you happy living with us? I mean, you should be enjoying your newlywed life with Catherine, and now with a daughter too.
Is that what you're worried about? I've told you before, I wanted to show my gratitude. I've always longed for a family, so this is perfect, actually more than perfect for me.
I was speechless, and he continued.
Also, I'm deeply grateful to both of you.
Grateful?
Yes. If it weren't for John, who knows where we would be now? And Mary, because you believed in him, everything ended without incident. If either of you had been missing, we wouldn't know how this might have ended. So, this is my chance to return the favor and show my deep gratitude to both of you.
Thank you. This time, even without John's powers, it was clear. He isn't lying. I thought that to myself.
The woman in the trunk is still alive.
Our 4-year-old daughter cheerfully greeted her dad, who had just returned from a business trip after a week. But then she said these strange words and hid behind me. When my husband, who had the car keys in his hand, turned pale and started shaking.
Hey, don't say weird things.
Knowing our daughter's unusual ability, I couldn't just ignore this. Because whatever she says always comes true. This is scary. What is my husband hiding? When the meaning of our daughter's words was finally revealed, a horrifying truth awaited us. My name is Katie, a 32-year-old housewife. After graduating from college, I joined my dad's company and met my husband, Mike. We got married 6 years ago, and I quit my job when I became pregnant, soon giving birth to our daughter, Sophia. Mike was overjoyed at Sophia's birth and treated me even more kindly than before. We have supported each other with love and gratitude, watching Sophia's grow. However, our happy life changed when Sophia turned 4. Mike, who had been so kind, suddenly became distant and cold. Hey, did you hear what I just said? What's wrong with you lately? You've been acting a bit strange.
Unlike you, who sits around the house all day, I'm exhausted from work.
Suddenly shouting, Mike grabbed the car keys roughly. Where are you going?
A drive to clear my head. Being around you is suffocating.
Ignoring my attempts to stop him, Mike drove off and didn't return until morning. Even on his days off, he found excuses to leave the house, and sometimes his clothes smelled of sweet perfume when he came back. He used to say that spending time with Sophia was the most important thing. Is he seeing any women? I couldn't stop these thoughts from swirling in my mind. However, I had no idea that I would soon witness something far worse than infidelity. That day, Mike returned home after a week-long business trip. Sophia was thrilled to see him after so long. But just as she was about to run to him, she stopped dead in her tracks with a strange expression.
The woman in the trunk is still alive.
Her words shocked me, and I gasped. Our daughter has an unusual ability to see things others can't. We first noticed it when she started talking. One day she said, "Grandma is coming." And a few minutes later, my mom, who lived nearby, showed up at our house. Surprised, I asked Sophia, "How did you know?" She said, "I saw my grandma walking towards us." Then similar things happened a few more times. The most shocking was 6 months after my grandmother passed away when I took Sophia to visit her grave. Sophia said, "Great-grandma says there's a ring behind her dresser." When we went to my grandmother's room at my parents' house, we found the ring exactly where she said. Mike, who loves anything occult, was thrilled and called it supernatural powers. Sophia's mysterious power seemed limited to our family and close surroundings, so I thought she might just be a little sensitive to spirits. But whatever she said always came true. So when I looked at Mike's face after Sophia's comment about the woman in the trunk, it was clear he was unsettled. He turned pale, and his hand holding the car keys started to shake.
Hey, don't say weird things.
But then he suddenly scolded Sophia, making her cry. "Hey, don't yell all of a sudden. It scares Sophia."
I'm tired from the trip, and she's saying strange things.
That's no reason to yell without even asking what she meant. You scared her.
Whatever. I've got important work documents in my car, so stay away from it.
Mike shoved the car keys into his suit pocket instead of leaving them in the living room as usual and went to his room. I tried to comfort Sophia, baffled by Mike's behavior. Why is Mike so agitated? Of course, being told to stay away made me even more curious. Sophia's words implied urgency. Mike's car originally belonged to my dad, and I had a spare key he didn't know about. So, while Mike was in the shower, I quickly went to the garage. With my heart pounding, I gathered my courage and opened the forbidden trunk. Sophia was right. It was true. Inside was an unfamiliar woman lying down. Seeing her with her back turned and completely still, I felt the blood drain from my body. Horrible. Why would Mike do this? But to my shock, the woman in the trunk started to move and groaned, "Ouch, ouch," as she slowly sat up. Relieved to see she was alive, I quickly helped her out of the car. "Hey, are you okay?"
Of course not. Just give me some water.
I was taken aback by her bold demand, but I went to the kitchen and brought back a bottle of water and some bread. She devoured both and sighed, "I feel alive again," then started talking about her affair with my husband. It turned out she was Mike's mistress. They had met online about 3 months ago, which was when Mike's attitude towards me had suddenly turned cold. Mike had secretly taken her along on his business trip, but on the way back, they had a heated argument. She threatened to tell me, and as she tried to leave the car, he chased her, and they ended up in a physical struggle. She hit her head when he pushed her, lost consciousness, and woke up in the car trunk. Apparently, Mike thought she was dead and panicked, hiding her there. I felt sickened by his cowardice. We should go to the hospital and the police right away.
I'm fine for now. I'll see a doctor tomorrow. And we don't need to go to the police, but you'll need to cover my medical bills.
Of course, I'll pay for that.
Great, then how about $500,000?
Excuse me? I looked at her thinking I had misheard.
Why are you so surprised? Your husband is the son of the CEO, right? If I go to the police, the company is done for, and you'll lose your happy life too.
I finally realized there that she was threatening me. From her story, it was clear Mike had been lying to his mistress about many things. While it's true he is technically the son of the CEO since he became my dad's son-in-law, it was part of the arrangement because I'm an only child. However, since he's not even an executive in the company yet, his arrest wouldn't have such a significant impact. Also, the house we live in is in my dad's name, so I wouldn't lose everything. But $500,000 is a lot of money. My husband is an asshole, but you are just like him. I was completely exasperated and decided to take them both down together. Our household finances are controlled by Mike, so I don't have any money at my disposal. Let's leverage his weakness together and get the money out of him.
Oh, I get it. Your husband is so stingy.
It seemed she had approached Mike for his money, but was always frustrated by his tight grip on his wallet. Their argument that day had apparently been about money, and she easily believed my story and agreed to my plan. Once we had a plan, I hid her in my car parked next door and told her to wait there. Back in the house, I called my mom, who lives nearby, and briefly explained the situation, arranging for her to take care of Sophia that night. When Mike came out of the shower, he suspiciously watched Sophia being taken away by my mom. Sophia said there's a ghost in this house, and she's scared. Since what she says always comes true, I'm having a famous psychic come by tomorrow. I lied, subtly hinting that he only had tonight to deal with the contents of the trunk, making Mike's face turn pale. You look very pale. Are you all right? Perhaps you'd better confess.
What are you talking about? I have nothing to hide.
Really? I didn't ask anything like that.
Shut up.
Mike shouted at me with no real force and fled to the bedroom. That night, I pretended to sleep, waiting for Mike to make a move. As expected, it's 1 o'clock at midnight. Mike quietly got out of bed and left the bedroom. I followed him a bit later. He grabbed a shovel in the shed and got into his car in the garage, not knowing the trunk was empty. He drove off, and I quickly got into my car with a hidden woman and started following him. Mike headed towards a nearby mountain. The path was straightforward, so I kept a safe distance to avoid being noticed. I was worried that if we went too far up the mountain, our phones might lose signal. Luckily, I found Mike's car halfway up the mountain. I parked my car in some nearby bushes and, with his mistress, watched his movements. It was a bright moonlit night, and Mike had left the car lights on, making it easy to see. He started digging with a shovel, taking about an hour to finish the hole. Then he cautiously opened the trunk and was shocked to find the woman missing. Frantically, he began checking the car, even under the hood, clearly panicking.
Look at him. He's totally freaking out.
She pulled out her phone and called Mike. The sudden ringtone and her name on the screen made him visibly terrified even from a distance. When he nervously answered, she whispered in a low voice, "Boo." Mike threw his phone and tried to run, only to fall into the hole he had just dug. Taking advantage of the situation, she tousled her hair, smeared her face with lipstick, and stepped out of the car towards the hole. The air echoed with Mike's terrified screams, loud enough to shake the trees.
Mike, why did you take my life?
No, it wasn't on purpose. Please believe me.
I loved you, Mike.
I loved you too. I could never hurt you, Laura. It was an accident.
Mike tried to crawl out of the hole but couldn't stand, trembling with fear. He kept trying to escape, but kept sliding back down like an animal trapped in quicksand. She picked up the shovel and started tossing dirt into the hole.
Hey, stop it. What are you doing?
I don't want to be alone. Let's sleep here together.
No, please. I'll never forget you, Laura. Please forgive me.
Mike finally broke down and started sobbing loudly. It was a pathetic sight, one I had never seen before. Maybe that's enough now? I was completely exasperated and walked over to her, standing in front of the hole.
Katie, why? How long have you been there?
I've been behind Laura the whole time. I followed her out of the car and had been filming this ridiculous scene with my phone up close, but Mike hadn't even noticed. To be precise, she and I followed you from the house. Mike finally realized he had been tricked into thinking she was dead.
You. How could you do this to me?
I never knew you were such an idiot. Maybe I should post this online.
Mike got angry and grabbed Laura's leg and dragged her into the hole, and they started grabbing each other.
I'll really do it this time.
I'm not so slow that you can do anything to me.
Their ugly fight didn't last long as a police car arrived. I had secretly messaged my mom to call the police while waiting in the car.
Why did you call the police? You tricked me.
Of course. Did you really think I'd team up with you? I then told her that the CEO of Mike's company is my dad, Alex, and Mike is just a son-in-law with no power. Not that it matters, but I don't care what happens to Mike. You can have him instead of the $500,000.
What? Who'd want this piece of trash? I'd return him with a bow.
Too bad. I thought you two made a good pair. Soon, a police officer shone a flashlight on them, and Mike started making excuses while she looked oddly panicked.
Officer, it's all a misunderstanding. I thought she was dead, but she's alive. There's no problem.
Yeah, nothing happened. We're fine now.
What are you talking about? We're here because you dug a hole on someone else's private property without permission.
What? Oh, well,
What was that about thinking she was dead? Let's discuss this at the station.
The police officer easily pulled Mike out of the hole and then turned to Laura, saying, "You need to come with us too." He did a double take when he saw her face. Her face, with its garishly applied red lipstick, looked almost demonic. However, without mentioning her appearance, the officer exclaimed, "You're Emily, the wanted criminal." It turned out that the woman I had always found suspicious was a habitual marriage scammer. I was thoroughly disgusted with my husband's stupidity.
Hey, Katie. I'll be back soon. Just don't tell Alex about this, okay?
At this point, that's all you have to say. Don't you have anything else to reflect on?
I'm sorry for betraying you, but I was deceived. Emily was a con artist.
His audacity to play the victim after a half-hearted apology left me in disbelief, and I sighed deeply. Listen, what I'm talking about is you putting her in the trunk. Sure, she's a criminal, but what you did was even worse.
I had no choice. If I didn't, it would have caused trouble for the company and you.
You were just trying to protect yourself. I can't stand your lack of integrity.
I'm sorry. I'll change from now on. I'll prioritize you and Sophia. Please don't abandon me.
At this point, Mike broke free from the officer's grip and fell to his knees, begging. My dad has already heard from my mom. They're going to fire you. So, you never have to come back. With that, I turned away, leaving Mike sobbing on the ground, and the sulking mistress was taken away by the police. Later, Mike was arrested, and his now resentful mistress filed a complaint, landing him in jail. I divorced Mike, demanded $20,000 in alimony for the affair, $100,000 in child support, and an additional $20,000 from the mistress. Mike also faced a $30,000 compensation claim for assault from the mistress, leaving him deep in debt. As for me, I moved back in with my mom for help with childcare and returned to work at my dad's company.
You know, Grandpa wants Mommy to help his work.
It was Sophia's simple comment that gave me the push I needed. I had always assumed that my dad didn't have high expectations for me, but it turns out he wanted me to take over his company. With the mysterious power of Sophia, I learned my dad's true feelings, and now I'm going to work hard and grow up myself to raise Sophia well.